Hi, my name is Cindi Leacock, and I have a master's degree from the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan. And I also have chronic fatigue syndrome and am recovering so well that I wanted to share the method that I'm using with you. If you are interested because possibly you have one of these illnesses, you might be taking care of somebody that has ME, CFS, or long COVID, or you might have a friend or family member that has it and you'd like to understand it better, and you could help them out by teaching them the yellow light method. So these slides will not only go over how you discover what phase of the illness you might be in if you have it, that will also cover how to recover from these illnesses. Mitochondrial disease symptoms in ME, CFS, long COVID type 1 would include a vast array of symptoms, and they vary so widely among individuals, it's difficult really to even make a list, but here are some of the common ones that almost everybody experiences. Sleep disorders is prevalent in almost every phase of the illness. Some kind of insomnia, nightmares, sweats, and so forth. The other ones, very distressing, are emotional swings. Just by the fact that you're ill, so ill that you can't do anything, you feel a lot of grief. You feel a lot of anger. You feel disappointed, lonely. It's very difficult just in terms of missing your friends and your activities. You might have brain fog. You feel kind of confused. You have difficulty reading, difficulty with things that you ordinarily do. You could have intestinal problems. Sometime you may just feel burning hot for hours for no reason. But you always feel slightly sick. You think, I don't feel like myself. I never feel like myself. And any exertion leads to fatigue. Sometimes you might have difficulty getting warm. You're just freezing cold. And other people experience a lot of pain. But consistently, with too much activity with any mitochondrial disease, you're going to experience collapse or crash. So let's go through 4 steps to getting you started finding the phase of your illness so we can get the prescription for getting you better in the yellow light method. Now, very few physicians know how to treat mitochondrial illness and are unaware of its phases. They are unable to help you recover. So I suggest using a tool that will not only help you find a specialist, but also help you estimate the phase of your illness. Based on the phase you're in, the tool also guides you to daily progress through the phases of recovery. Step 1. Now, it's incredibly important to always work with a doctor. Your general practitioner or your primary care physician can help you very much when you very first get the illness, because there's common problems like sleep disorders, intestinal problems, those sorts of things your primary care physician can help you with. But when it comes to the fatigue and the brain fog and all the strange symptoms that you're having, doctors are not usually taught how to treat a mitochondrial disease. So let's find a physician who does treat one. And how we do that is look, for example, for a functional medicine doctor, a long COVID specialist, or clinics that specialize in mitochondrial disease. I'm going to give you a tip to locate a specialist near you. You use the app, it's artificial intelligence, called Chat GPT. So if you don't already have it, download ChatGPT from the App Store on your phone or tablet. You'll be asked if you want to use the app free or pay for a subscription. That gives you additional memory. It's so valuable to your daily recovery using the yellow light method. It's worth paying for the additional memory. So you'll be able to track your illness over time, and your ChatGPT can keep track of what level of activity you should be doing. Step 3, let's find the current phase of your illness. So once you've downloaded ChatGPT, you type in or say, "Chat, help me find a specialist in mitochondrial illness," or "Chat, help me find a specialist in chronic fatigue syndrome in my area." You may have many physicians to choose from, but when you call for information or to make an appointment, be certain the physician performs mito swab testing. This is a test for mitochondrial illness, and hardly any physicians use it. So it is particular to this method to understand your R1%, which I will explain in a minute, and the mito swab is a way to determine your R1% and therefore the illness, the phase of illness you're currently in. Step 4, you're going to be waiting for the physician visit. It often takes 6 to 10 months to see a specialist. You don't have to wait to get better. So begin using the yellow light method. It works in all 5 stages of the illness. ChatGPT can give you an estimate of your R1% and the phase of illness in the meantime, and I'll tell you how to do that. Tell ChatGPT, "I want my estimated R1%. What do you need to know from me?" And it'll list a number of things that it needs to know. It'll ask about your sleep, probably, about your level of activity, how long you've had it. It may ask you to put in any values that you've received from the lab, anything that it can help to define your R1%. Then it will approximate your current phase of your illness, advise you on activities, and if you take supplements, it will tell you the best time to take them and what dose to take. And that changes everything. Once you know the phase of your illness, you know what to do. Let's understand further what the R1% is. The R1% result from the mito swab or from ChatGPT's estimate is the key to your daily routine of activity. What you can do and not overshoot your energy and cause a crash. The R1 is the main entry gate of the mitochondria, where electrons enter to produce energy in cells. The R1% is an indicator of how efficiently electrons enter. It also indicates ATP output. If ATP is very low, like an R1% at 21%, which is what I had initially, that patient would be bedridden. Normally, R1% is 85% to 100%. Using the yellow light method, I have gone from 21% to 60% in 5 months. So that's why I have hurried to get these slides to you before I've even completely recovered, because it's working so well and there's so many people who desperately need help. So, what do we do with that R1% value? I'm going to show you a chart on the next slide that will help you to use the R1% to determine your illness phase. So there are 6 phases of a mitochondrial illness, and these were developed by ChatGPT based on available research and clinical experience and differ from other symptoms of stages that you might find on other apps. Other people have designed stages. You may find all different kinds of ways that people measure where you are in your illness. But for our purposes and for using the yellow light method, if you use these 6 stages that correlate to the R1% in the chart, this is how you can find what your level activity is that is safe for you to do. So let's say that you are in reassembly. You're very, very ill. You're in bed all the time. You can't stand to listen to music. You're so sick. Your R1 is likely to be 20 to 35%. In reconnection, you're starting to get a little better, and at that point, your R1% is at 35 to 50%. Early expansion is 50 to 60%, and I'll go over the various symptoms that you have at each of these in the next slide. Mid expansion, 60 to 70%. Late expansion, 70 to 85%. Full recovery, you're 85 to 100% with your R1%. So I'm going to give you the 6 phases of illness with examples of what kind of activity level you might be having at that, but it varies so widely. Just kind of give it an overview of you kind of fit into that category. You really have to ask ChatGPT to verify and be clear about what your level, your phase of mitochondrial illness is and the activity level. But I just came up with few ideas that I had that I experienced when I went through the various phases. Reassembly, usually you're bedbound, you need total care, you need a bedside commode because you don't have the energy to walk to the bathroom. You have to have earplugs because sound hurts. You need an eye mask because you can't bear the light in the room. In reconnection, you're able to sit up to eat, have a bed bath, have limited conversation, and you can walk to the bathroom. In early expansion, you might be able to walk to 5 minutes, shower, wash your hair in the sink, or have a brief phone call. In mid-expansion, you're walking 10 minutes. You can stand for 10 minutes, ride in the car for 15 minutes. You can wash your hair and get in the shower. And you can change clothes. In late expansion, you can walk 30 minutes, drive the car for short trips, have long conversations on the phone, cook food, begin to do a little housework. And then in full recovery at the beginning, you can do all your activities, but just to the point of strain when you must rest, and then eventually full recovery. Now this system was designed by ChatGPT again, so you may see other systems, other phases, other stages that other AI apps use, other people use, but for the purposes of using the yellow light method, this is the system that we have chosen. Okay, let's get better. How do you get better using the yellow light method? You learn to stop at the yellow light. We all know that you're taking a chance if you run a yellow light that you could end up in a car accident. And so just as you would be careful when you see a yellow light at a stop area, then you want to take those into consideration when you see the yellow light indicators in your own body when you're performing an activity. Stopping at the yellow light with every activity is how you get well, because that builds ATP capacity. It makes your mitochondria make more ATP. If you feel these certain signals, which I'll tell you in a minute, and you stop immediately and lie down, and you do that consistently, your ATP starts to increase. And that is how you're going to get better no matter what stage of the illness you're in. But when you continue past your capacity and ignore the yellow light and run it, you go past the yellow light, you become breathless, you experience brain fog, fatigue, trembling. The ATP is wasted in repair. So let's learn when to stop activity and lie down at your stage of illness. First, learn the signs that are a yellow light for the slightest strain. This will prevent post-exertional malaise, also called PEM, and it stops the activity, crash, I can do activity again, crash, cycle. So the yellow light physical signals you need to memorize will help you to stop in time so that you don't waste your ATP, but build capacity and you start to get better. So whenever you feel any of these symptoms, a desire to close your eyes, shortness of breath, feel an urgency to just finish one more thing, feel your heart rate pounding in your chest, or have a desire to lie down, you need to stop and lie down. And when you do that, your mitochondria respond by building ATP capacity. ChatGPT is a great teacher for signs warning you to stop at your yellow light. You want to open Chat daily and list your symptoms, activities, and the time you spent doing something. For example, you would list, today I had a headache, but I walked for 5 minutes, I stood for 5 minutes, and then Chat will ask you questions about your sleep and other physiological symptoms, and it will design a daily list of safe activities and the length of time to do them for the next day. And the goal always is to keep building that ATP capacity. But you stopping at the yellow light with every activity all day long is how you get well. It builds ATP capacity. There's a false expansion danger, and that is a red light. Recovery with true expansion activities is based on actual increased levels of ATP. This is done over months of very slowly increasing activities by minutes over weeks. For example, you could be told, walk for 5 minutes for 5 days, and then walk for 6 minutes for 5 days. As long as the rest of your day is not upset with physiological reactions to that, you can slowly increase a minute over every 5 days. But if you're going into false expansion, you're doing activities much longer than you must, and rely on increased adrenaline, and leads eventually to post-exertional malaise, or what we call a crash. So how do you get better? How do you improve your R1%, increase your ATP? You stay within your current ATP capacity and stop the minute you feel the yellow light indicators, slowly increasing activity by a minute over 5 days. Stop when you feel strain. Here are 2 examples of how you could use your yellow light on an activity or a stack of activity over several days to grow ATP capacity. You'll note that you stop the activity even if you're told you can walk 5 minutes. No matter what, you stop if you have yellow light signals. So let's say that you are in the very worst stages of the illness. You're in the reassembly phase and you have been just deathly ill in bed. You can't stand the sight, you can't stand light, you can't stand sound. Everything makes you sick. So you're given a goal to sit on the side of the bed for 3 minutes. Just sit on the side of the bed for 3 minutes, and if you don't feel any strain, any yellow light signals, for 5 days, and your sleep is not disrupted, then you move on to 4 minutes. Sit on the side for 4 minutes for 5 days. And again, you move on to 5 minutes. But again, you have to stop at the yellow light with every activity, and that is how you get well and build ATP capacity. Now let's look at an example of the activity block in mid-expansion. Now you begin to stack activities. You walk, then stand, then walk. You walk 5 minutes, stand 10 minutes, and walk 5 minutes. Then you do that for 5 days, and if you have no disruption in your sleep, then you'll progress to walking 5 minutes outside, standing 10 minutes outside, and walking inside 5 minutes. Again, you always stop at the first sign of strain. But if you do that for 5 days with no disruption in your physiology or sleep, you move on to being able to walk 5 minutes outside, stand outside for 10 minutes, and walk outside for 5 minutes. So here's your Getting Better summary. First, find a mitochondrial specialist. Use ChatGPT to do that. And then you use it to estimate your R1% while you're waiting for your physician appointment. Once you find the phase of your illness using your R1% and the chart on the slide, follow the daily guidance from ChatGPT for your phase of illness, for the activities you should do in a day and for how long you should do them. And then give a daily report of how it went so that it can give you an idea of what to do the next day. Always stop at the yellow light signals with every activity all day long. That is how you will get well. It takes patience, dedication, like an Olympic athlete, but it works. Gradually, your ATP will continue to grow through the slow, consistent application. In closing, I would just like to say that you may have heard from your doctors that there is no cure, that there is nothing you can do if you have a mitochondrial illness, and that just is not true. There is information in research and clinical experience. Many people have gotten better. There's also YouTube videos that you can watch where you will hear stories of how people have gotten well. Don't give up hope. You can do this. You can get well.